In the soil lab, one of the things you need to do is grind your soil. Before you grind the soil, you need to make sure that the grinder is clean. So what you can do is you can take this off, pull this off, and make sure that it's been cleaned if another student has used it before you. In this case, it has been cleaned, and so we're ready to grind. Have your soil ready, and have a pan ready to collect the soil after it has been ground. You can turn on the grinder over here. Make sure that's plugged in. Turn it on. And add the soil. Make sure that you have removed the necessary stuff, such as rocks, from the soil before you actually go to grind. So after the first round of grinding, then you can then take it to the sieve. This is the sieve. We have the mesh and then the collector. So you can add the soil to the sieve. Put on the top, and then you can shake it. And then when you're done, the soil that was too small to go through the mesh is here, and then the soil with the small enough granule size has gone through. If this is less than, I believe it's 90, or if this is more than 90, more than 2% of the total mass is here, then you need to regrind it. So you can stick this back into the pan and take it back to the grinder and grind it again. So after you put the soil through the sieve, the next step is to separate it into 4, 5 to 10 gram samples of soil. Right now we have all the soil that is proper fineness, and so if you need to weigh this or whatever it says to do in the manual, make sure you weigh everything according to what you need. And add this to the container, and here we will split the samples. So what this does is it will split the samples 50 to 50 on one side. So if I have 120 grams of soil here, I could dump it, and then if I have containers here, half the soil will go in this container and half will go in this container. So if I start with 120, it will be 60 and 60. I can then take one of these, which will be 60, and then split it again into 30 and 30. So you need to do the calculations so that you end up getting 4 samples that are 5 to 10 grams in total mass. Another thing that's important is if you're using these smaller containers, make sure you have these booster blocks for them to sit in. Also, you may have to put these in an angle to make sure they fit. If you are using the larger containers, you do not need those booster blocks, and so you can have a sample like this. One more thing, when you're adding the soil to the riffle, make sure it's fairly even across, and then you just do a nice, simple pour, and it will split it 50-50. After you have separated your samples and you get it so that you have 4 approximately 10 gram samples, you will have containers which are dirty, so you need to clean them. The first thing you can do is take it over to the hood where there's nitrogen, and then blow out the dirt for the nitrogen, and then after that you can take it to the sink, rinse it out with water, and then distilled water, and put it in the oven to dry. But if you don't blow it out with nitrogen, you'll make a whole bunch of mud, and you don't want to do that, so we'll first blow it out with nitrogen. Turn on the air, and blow it out with nitrogen. After you've divided your samples with the riffle, the next thing you need to do is to add water and nitric acid, and then put them on a hot plate to digest for, I believe, an hour. While your sample is digesting, one of the things that you can do is clean the pans. For example, if there's soil in these, take it over to the nitrogen and you can blow it out. Afterwards, you can rinse them out in the sink and then take them to the oven to dry. For these pans, be sure to get all of the little tiny particles in the mesh out, and then you can, again, use the nitrogen, wash it in the sink, and then take it to the oven to dry. When the samples are done digesting, you can now filter them. You can set up an apparatus like this, and then you can take the sample, filter it through, and then dilute up to the mark on the volumetric flask.